The first two entries in the Super Smash Bros. Series are often remembered with fondness. The unique gameplay, character diversity, collectibles, and single-player content truly left a mark on the gaming world. But if you bring up that third entry, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, you might just end up throwing hands behind the 7-Eleven. This is the most divisive game in the Smash series by far. People either love this game to death, or they hate it so much they wish death upon you for liking it. But why is that? I mean, what is it about this game that makes people just absolutely lose their minds? I mean, it's still Smash Bros. Like, can it really be that bad? Well, let's answer that question by taking a deep dive into this worst Smash game, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. E3 2005. The president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, officially unveils the Nintendo Wii to the public. A sleek, modern design, wireless motion controllers, a DVD playback option that never actually came out, it had it all. And one of the key selling points of this new console was Wi-Fi connection compatibility and online multiplayer. And without a doubt, the most requested game for this service was Super Smash Bros., which Iwata promised right there on the stage. And to Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of the Smash series, this was a shock. Sitting there at E3, this was the first he had ever heard of a new entry happening for Smash. The next day, Iwata met with Sakurai and he was formally asked to be involved with the project. Ideally, he would direct the game, but they were willing to have him involved in a role as close to the director as possible. Now, this was a truly special proposal, both for Nintendo and for Sakurai. After the completion of Super Smash Bros. Melee, Sakurai made the decision to leave HAL Laboratory and become a freelance developer, allowing him to work on a variety of games with a variety of people. But this was Smash, and pretty much everyone agreed that he was truly the only man that could lead development on a new Smash game. There's just something about it. He's the secret sauce of Smash. Despite this, the decision was surprisingly not a quick one. In the event that he said no, he asked what Nintendo's plan was, and it was surprisingly simple. They would just take Super Smash Bros. Melee, port it exactly as it was over to the Wii, give it online functionality, and ship it. Oh, I'm gonna be sick. But fortunately, Sakurai ultimately decided that he would direct this new Smash game. Because he was now freelance, some additional legal stuff needed to happen in order to get this setup to work. But Nintendo was fully willing to fight these legal monsters for Sakurai, which is a true testament to their faith in his leadership. He just is that secret sauce. And so, work officially began. When setting out to develop this new Smash Bros., there were two key aspects that were really important. The first came from Nintendo: online play. Online PC gaming was already huge, and with Xbox leading the charge with Xbox Live on consoles, everyone started to want a piece. Plus, it's just a no-brainer. Games like Mario Kart and Smash are already multiplayer paradises. Adding online to that can only be a positive. The second key area was Sakurai's vision: a big single-player adventure within the world of Smash. We saw glimpses of this idea with Melee's adventure mode, traversing and platforming through different gaming locales, but Sakurai wanted to take it to the next level and make it a true campaign. But these weren't the only new additions, and Sakurai was finally able to implement some ideas that didn't end up working out in the previous entries. First, Final Smashes. Very likely inspired by super moves in more traditional fighting games, Final Smashes are a character's absolute strongest move, designed specifically to do massive amounts of damage and earn KOs. These are earned by attacking and breaking the all-new Smash Ball item, which will cause you to glow, indicating that you have your Final Smash. Each Final Smash is built upon a character's moveset and game of origin. Mario unleashes a giant wave of fire, complementing his Fireball move. Link traps an enemy in the Triforce and repeatedly slashes them with the Master Sword. And Kirby cooks you up in a stew. This has Donkey Kong in it? Another huge addition to the game is another new item, the Assist Trophy. These are small trophy containers that summon a random character to fight alongside you, or sometimes just be an asshole to everyone playing. The true joy of Assist Trophies is that they really add to the diversity of gaming representation. It gives characters an opportunity to be in the game when they might be too difficult to design a moveset for, or simply not popular enough. Like anyone is going to expect Little Mac to become a full fighter. Final Smashes were actually intended to appear in the first Smash game for the N64, with some voice lines even recorded for the concept. However, the N64 was simply not powerful enough for this, so the idea ended up being shelved. Assist trophies were also attempted for Melee, but were apparently scrapped as well. The only assist that has ever been discussed for Melee was one for Duck Hunt, which would have seen the ducks fly around and attack enemy players. Music was also dramatically expanded in this new game. The increased size of the Wii's DVDs compared to the GameCube allowed for far more data. As a result, every stage has a huge list of songs you can choose from, and you can even customize the frequency each song will appear, which is absolutely a great touch. Sakurai's wish for live music was also fulfilled, with 38 composers working on the game's soundtrack. It's not 100% orchestrated, as there are tracks from previous Smash games and tracks ripped straight from the game of origin, but it's still insanely impressive. And you can't forget all of the different control schemes. The Wii introduced a bunch of different controller combinations, and this new Smash game supported all of them, from the lowly solo Wii remote to the controller attachments, and of course, the GameCube controller. So with all of these great new additions, how could anybody scoff at this new entry? Well, hold your horses, because we haven't even talked about the gameplay yet. Super Smash Bros. Melee had become a beast. Players were figuring out wild mechanics, advanced techniques, and they had just become so good that they were playing at a speed that was genuinely never expected. The skill gap between a novice and an experienced player was getting wider and wider with each passing day, and Sakurai just did not fuck with that. His whole inspiration for creating Smash was to create a game that was enjoyable for both novices and experts, and Melee had evolved to just be the exact opposite. This resulted in a massive overhaul of the gameplay. The advanced techniques found in Melee were removed, and the game was slowed way down and made far floatier. Characters were given more ending lag on moves, meaning it would be much more difficult to perform long combos. Players who were struggling might respawn with a final smash as a sort of comeback factor. And also, in short, this game was made way more noob-friendly than the previous games. While this was Sakurai's personal vision for the game, it also lined up with Nintendo's goals for the Wii, catering to the casual audience. And so, E3 2006 rolls around, and it's finally time to unveil this new Smash game, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Can I just pause here to say how much I love this opening? The old Melee models running in and then transforming into their new designs is just so cool. Now the designs themselves, I don't know how they invented the jeans art style, but they did it. But it's not just the new designs we get to see. They also revealed a big clump of brand new fighters. Meta Knight, a villain from the Kirby series, who debuted in Kirby's second ever title, Kirby's Adventure. It's really shocking that for the creator of the Kirby series, it took him until the third game to include a second Kirby character. After that, Pit, the protagonist of Kid Icarus for the NES and its Game Boy sequel. Kid Icarus had become one of those forgotten about series from Nintendo's history. However, unlike his appearance in those games and his cameo in Melee, Pit received a massive redesign. Sakurai envisioned a Pit from a Kid Icarus game in the modern age, giving him a more mature and anime-like design rather than the sort of cutesy one that he has in his official games. And speaking of mature designs, Zero Suit Samus. The Zero Suit debuted in Metroid Zero Mission, a remake of the first Metroid for the Game Boy Advance. Samus loses her power suit and must stealth her way around enemies while in her Zero Suit. Her moveset involves her Paralyzer pistol, which can also become a whip. Finally, Wario is revealed. Sakurai's discussed several times that if he had the time to include just one more fighter in Melee, Wario would have been next in line, so it's no surprise that he's here. However, in the time between Melee and Brawl, Wario's game landscape had a big shakeup. Wario's home used to be the Wario Land series. However, more recently, the focus shifted to a new series, WarioWare, with the gameplay focusing on clearing through microgames and just overall having a totally different vibe. And Wario is primarily designed around these games, with some Wario Land thrown in there. And that was everyone shown off in Brawl's reveal. Showtime! Yeah, this was such an out of left field reveal. Snake from the Metal Gear Solid series. Apparently, Snake's creator, Hideo Kojima, practically begged for Snake to be included back in Melee, but unfortunately it was far too late in development for that to be reasonable. So, this time around, Sakurai fulfilled that request, and Snake was added to Brawl. So many people debated about the legitimacy of this. Was Snake really worthy of being in the game alongside all the Nintendo guys? It didn't matter, he was in the game, but people just like to yell. But this released the floodgates. Third-party characters could now be added to Smash. This was groundbreaking. Suddenly, anyone, regardless of ownership, could join the fight. Snake being the character that hit that milestone for the series, though, is just still so strange all these years later. From this point on, information about the game was drip-fed to the community on the official website, the Smash Bros. Dojo, where new information would be posted about the game every weekday. It's hard to explain just how fun this period in the Smash community was. Getting up every day and booting up the site to see what new tidbit was revealed. Some days it would be, ooh, here's how to recover. This is a banana peel. And other days would be, oh yeah, we added a fucking hedgehog. It seems so unceremonious compared to the more recent games, with our fancy Nintendo live streams and character reveal doodads. But back then, this was an absolute treat. I mean, before this, we were used to accidentally unlocking Mewtwo without knowing he was even in the game. So knowing any characters ahead of time, even on a tiny little blog post, was something special. Ike was the first brand new character revealed for the game on the dojo. Fire Emblem had finally come to the West, and Ike was the star of the GameCube installment of the series, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. He also had a sequel in development for Wii at the time, so it just made sense to add him, considering the only other Fire Emblem reps were only familiar to Japanese players. A couple weeks later, Pokemon Trainer was revealed, an amazing concept for a fighter. A 3-in-1 character where you can switch between Pokemon as though they were in your party in the game. I mean, the whole point of the Pokemon games is that you set out on this grand adventure as a trainer where you catch Pokemon and assemble a team. So ironically, Pokemon Trainer is probably the best representation of the games that Smash has ever seen. The trainer is based on the protagonist of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, the remakes of the first generation of Pokemon games. And the starters come from the starter Pokemon from those games at varying levels of evolution, which is another layer of representation. Squirtle, the base form, Ivysaur, the Stage 1 Pokemon, and Charizard, the final evolution. Each have their own dedicated moveset, with the exception of sharing a down special that swaps to the next Pokemon in the line. Diddy Kong was next to be revealed, only the second character ever from the Donkey Kong series. As one of Nintendo's oldest franchises, it's honestly shocking it took this long, but it just couldn't be anybody other than Diddy. Lucas was revealed next, the protagonist of Mother 3, the third game in the Mother series that at the time was Japan exclusive. Insert Mother 3 localization joke here. Apparently, Lucas was actually intended to appear in Melee, replacing Ness as the Mother series representative. At that time, the game was in development for the Nintendo 64 DD, a hardware attachment for the 64, and was known simply as Earthbound 64. However, for a variety of reasons, the development was ultimately trashed and started over, resulting in Ness staying in Melee. The game then resurfaced for the Game Boy Advance as Mother 3 and was finally released, so now was as good a time as any to include Lucas in the roster. And then this blue bastard was revealed, and all bets were truly off. Sonic in Super Smash Bros., Mario's previous mortal enemy with the Sega vs Nintendo console wars and shit talk in the past. Suddenly, they're besties not only in Smash, but in that little Olympics game that will definitely just be a one-off. It's really hard to describe if you weren't there at the time, because seeing Sonic and Mario together nowadays is just very natural. But it was just so surreal back then to see Mario and Sonic together. I sure hope his moveset doesn't suck. King Dedede was then revealed, which is certainly a treat. Had it just been Kirby and Meta Knight in the game, a Dedede-sized hole would definitely have been felt in the roster, so it just seems right that he's also a fighter. And then we have Olimar. The GameCube saw the introduction of multiple new IPs for Nintendo, with Miyamoto's new baby, Pikmin, being one of the most prominent. And it didn't get just one game on that console, but two. Pikmin has definitely been one of these struggling Nintendo IPs, with varied success throughout its lifetime. But being from Miyamoto and performing just well enough, secured Olimar's place in this lineup. And he fights using the little Pikmin. That's adorable. Olimar was actually the very last character to be revealed on the dojo before the game was released. Character posts were still made afterwards, but at that point everyone knew the roster because we already had the game. But regardless, there are 4 more characters that were added. The first is Lucario, a Pokemon from the 4th generation series of games. Pokemon was positioning Lucario as one of their big new guys, sort of like a new Mewtwo. He had appearances in the anime well ahead of Generation 4's reveal, and he even got a starring role in a Pokemon movie. In Smash, he features a unique aura system, where the more damage that he takes, the more powerful his moves become. Rob the Robot was also added, a very unique addition in that he's not actually a video game character, but rather a peripheral. A good chunk of his moveset is inspired by the movements and accessories from his physical counterpart. Absolutely one of Smash's most unique inclusions throughout the whole roster, and an amazing twist on both a retro gaming character and Nintendo's physical peripheral lineup. Toon Link is also a new, yet kinda old, fighter. Famously, the GameCube's first ever Zelda game was The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, with a cel-shaded cartoon aesthetic that no one was expecting. Many wanted a gritty, realistic Zelda game like what was shown off in the Space World Tech demo, and a few years later, Twilight Princess answered that demand on both the GameCube and Wii. So to take advantage of these two very different art styles, Smash added both. Link was now the Link from Twilight Princess, and the addition of Toon Link represented the Wind Waker. This is still effectively the Link and Young Link split from Melee, except now instead of representing two ages of Link, it's two completely different incarnations with two totally different styles. Honestly, it's such a clever way to represent the very weird logistics of the Zelda series. And the other Zelda characters were updated to Twilight Princess designs as well, so the gang's all here, plus the annoying little cousin. And finally, we have Wolf, an antagonist from the Star Fox series in his fancy pants new clothes from Star Fox Assault and Command. However, rather than bringing a whole new moveset over, he's just a variation of Fox and Falco's movesets. Roughly the same moves, but with his own little spin on it. So essentially, all three characters in the game originate from the same character's moveset. That's just perverse. Brawl is also notable for being the first Smash game to feature cut characters. Dr. Mario, Pichu, Young Link, Roy, and Mewtwo were all cut from the Smash Bros. Lineup. The first four are kind of obvious, just scrapping or replacing the clone characters. Mewtwo has always been a mystery to me since he's fully original, but again, Lucario sort of fills that gap, so I guess it's alright. Behind the scenes, Brawl saw several multiple-month delays, with one of these apparently being a result of Sonic's edition. But January 31st, 2008 finally saw the release of Super Smash Bros. Brawl in Japan, with the rest of the world getting it a few months later. As iconic as all of Smash's music is, I don't think there is anything that can top Brawl's main theme. This epic orchestra with a choir singing the words in a dead language, this is like a top 2 song in the whole series for me. Brawl has so much on offer that it's kind of hard to choose where to start. Of course there's multiplayer, the core of Smash's identity. Pretty much every rule set found in Melee returns. Time, stock, coin, and you can play in teams. This time around though, the special mode is called Special Brawl, and rather than choosing just one specific mode, you're given a range of attributes that you can tweak to your heart's content. To match with the more casual focus of this game, the stages were also designed accordingly. There is way more wackiness to be found here. Stages are more likely to move around, have hazards or destructible environments, or a giant f***ing bullboard that eats you. There are some really cool stages on offer here. Mushroomy Kingdom is a total recreation of both World 1-1 and 1-2 in Super Mario Bros. If it experienced a nuclear winter. WarioWare periodically interrupts the fight with a microgame. There's an all-new Pokemon Stadium with all-new transformations. PictoChat generates new environments by having them drawn like on a touchscreen, and there are some awesome arcade tributes with both the Mario Bros. And 75M stages. But there are some more neutral stages as well for players who like that sort of thing, along with some Melee stages that can also be selected on a second screen in the Stage Select menu. All new items are also present naturally, and they really increase the chaos that can be brought to a match. From the Smart Bomb to the Super Spicy Curry to the Dragoon that causes everyone to scatter and hope they don't get targeted. Single player content is in abundance here as well, with plenty of changes and some additions. Classic mode is back, where you go through a series of battles to ultimately fight Master and Crazy Hand at the end. However, unlike Melee, where everything was randomized, Brawl sort of uses preset scenarios to pull from. Your first battle will always be against a set of Zelda fighters on a Zelda stage, followed by Yoshi or Donkey Kong, then Pokemon, and so on. It keeps all of the battles themed to a certain series while randomizing the players and stages. I don't entirely mind this, keeping it themed with certain series obviously makes sense, but I also do somewhat miss the never know what you're gonna get angle from back in Melee. All-Star also makes a return, pretty much unchanged from how it worked in Melee, just in a different order. Events make a comeback too, with all new scenarios that you can take on, with even more creative themes than before in my opinion. There's also the addition of co-op events, which incorporate special themes designed specifically around 2 players. Pretty much all of the single player modes can be done with 2 players, but the events are the only ones with significant design changes. And there's Stadium mode again, which features all of the silly little mini-games. Home Run Contest is back, Multi-Man Brawl is the new Horde mode, with significantly worse designs for this new Fighting Alloy team. And Break the Targets returns, way worse than it used to be. Back in 64 and Melee, each character had their own unique Break the Target stage, which were built around their specific moveset and attributes. For Brawl's new Target Smash mode, they just designed 5 different stages in increasing difficulty and called it a day. It's just so much worse than it used to be. With this new approach, it doesn't really matter who I'm playing as. I usually end up taking the same pathing on each stage every time. It's just so boring now. I get it's a silly little side mode that is absolutely not top priority, but it still just makes me sad. Lastly, Stadium has a boss rush mode. Beat the bosses in the fastest time possible. But where do most of these bosses appear? In Sakurai's Big Vision, the all-new campaign, the Subspace Emissary. Man, there's a lot to say here. The story of the campaign starts small, with Kirby and Mario fighting a little exhibition match in a stadium. Then, all hell breaks loose. If you actually gave a summary of the story events, a whole lot of nothing happens over the course of like 10 hours. Characters meet up, get separated, fight each other, fight bad guys, get turned into trophies, get turned back, and fight some more bad guys. And no one expects the double plot twist. We're led to believe the bad guys are Ganondorf, Bowser, and Wario, and we have no idea what their motivations are. Then we find out they're actually answering to Master Hand, and we have no idea what his motivations are. But then we find out Master Hand is being puppeteered by an even higher villain, Taboo, and we have no idea what his motivations are. All the characters finally come together, traveling outside the universe itself or something, and they beat this guy up. On a first playthrough, I think this mode is great. Playing essentially a platformer in the context of Smash is awesome, and seeing the bizarre team-ups is hilarious. Like, who the hell is putting Lucario and Snake together? Only Sakurai. But once you start to look a bit more critically, the cracks start to show. There really isn't that much of a story outside of those villain twists. Characters just sort of meet up and run. There's cute little interactions, but without voice acting, it's really hard for these cutscenes to advance any kind of narrative other than team up, go fight. The levels are also just really generic. Jungle, lakeside, wasteland, ruins, they're all just so bland. Going into this, I would have expected locations based on the different series in the game. The closest we got is what's supposed to be Skyworld from Kid Icarus, and you get to play as Pit during that. But even then, the design for that is just clouds. Like, imagine if you were going through a forest, but it's in Hyrule, so you fight enemies from that series. Then the next level is an actual Skyworld with Kid Icarus guys, and then you fight Bowser in a Mario-themed level. The platforming through these sections, defeating various minions and enemies, is admittedly really fun though. Some are indeed enemies from some Nintendo series, but there are all new designs made just for this mode, and they are pretty creative. There are some areas with puzzles, where you need to backtrack and perform a task in a different room to open up access forward. It's very much more than just a platforming and attack enemies kind of game. But the Great Maze can just fuck right off. It's so long and confusing, and even on like my 10th playthrough, I just dread this part of the game. You lose all of your fighters, and you have to go find and collect their trophies throughout this gigantic maze. It doesn't start off terribly because you're finding a bunch like all in a row, but halfway through, you end up backtracking so much just to go get frickin' Diddy Kong. I still do have a lot of fun with this mode, but in some areas it really feels like a missed opportunity. But the cutscenes are beautiful. I'm actually so sad that they're compressed to hell for playback on the Wii, because I know these would be absolutely gorgeous in HD. And seeing all of these characters interact with each other and fight together, I mean, it truly is such a treat. From one big goal to the other, there's the Wi-Fi play that you can no longer officially Wi-Fi play on. But back when you could play it, it wasn't the best. You could have some good quality matches, but often you'd have some bad ones, either with noticeable stuttering or input lag. Generally, if you played someone close to you in the region, you could have an okay time. But overall, it was a pretty rough experience, which is certainly saying something when you look at the future of Smash Online. There's also so much to do over in the Vault. Trophies make a comeback, with almost double the number that were present in Melee. While representing the front and center series in the game, even more obscure and side series are also represented here, viewable in either the detailed gallery or all at once in the trophy hoard. There's even an awesome coin launcher mode, where you shoot coins that you've earned at moving trophies in this little minigame. And then there are stickers, one of the most forgotten parts of Brawl. These can be collected across a multitude of modes, added to your sticker album. They can then be added to the base of your fighter's trophy in Subspace Emissary to boost their stats and abilities, or to be completely ignored by 14-year-old me. It's actually crazy how many people forget about stickers, because these are basically the precursor to Spirits in Smash Ultimate. But then there's Brawl's biggest addition to the series, the Stage Builder. The ability to create your own stages, draw out the platforms, add all kinds of objects and obstacles, was truly so cool. There are all kinds of videos of fun little mini-games made out of Stage Builder, like surviving the longest on a lava-filled stage or making a little obstacle course. But my favorite thing that the Stage Builder brought was the Vault also has challenges. Completing these challenges offer unlockable content, from stickers and trophies to bigger things like music tracks or full-on stages. There's nothing like hearing that little and seeing what challenge you just accidentally completed. Masterpieces also live in the Vault, short little demos of the classic games that some of Smash's characters came from. Enjoy dozens of seconds of exciting gameplay from right inside Brawl. Yeah, these demos always felt super cheap. Like, I get limiting it to a certain amount of time, but literally 30 seconds of gameplay? Like, why do it at all at that point? The only good part of the Masterpieces is that they are genuinely the full games on the disc, which is how we have this speedrunner beating Ocarina of Time using glitches in less than 5 minutes, in multiple ways. And finally, The Chronicle, a history lesson of sorts that gives a gigantic list of games published by Nintendo throughout their history. Like, genuinely, they had no reason to do most of the stuff that's found in the Vault, they just did. But wait, I forgot the best feature, the deflicker option. There's a lot to love about Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and there's a lot to grumble about as well. If you are a fan of competitive Melee, with its speed and advanced tech, I can totally understand why Brawl might be the worst Smash game to you. But if you enjoy the Smash series more casually, I think it's a perfectly valid take for Brawl to be your absolute favorite. Despite the Melee competitive scene continuing to play that game even after Brawl's release, a competitive scene for Brawl also sprouted up. Even though it was slower and more floaty, there was still a push and pull element that made the game competitive, it was just in a different way. Or you could just launch the Stage Builder and get the best of both worlds. Project M, or as it goes by now, Project Plus, is a mod that takes Super Smash Bros. Brawl and makes it play just like Melee, with the speed and advanced tech that the competitive scene loves. But it also keeps some elements from Brawl too, certain mechanics, designs, and of course the cast of brand new characters, and it turned into this really cool mixture of both Melee and Brawl. I mean, really, it became its own game, bringing back scrapped characters and even introducing all new ones. In many ways, Project M is the best celebration of Nintendo and gaming that we've ever seen. There was a good period of time there where it was genuinely the most popular Smash Bros. Game, and it wasn't even official. Super Smash Bros. Brawl is such a mixed bag. On the one hand, the gameplay is stripped and slowed down to a shell of its former glory. Your character is slower, interactions feel overall clunkier, and but on the other hand, the game has so much to offer. New stuff like final smashes, assist trophies, third-party characters, a big adventure mode, but also expanding the character roster, stage and item variety, a huge selection of music. Characters are starting to get more complex too, with whole mechanics programmed just for them. And this is something we're going to see more of in the future. It really boils down to some people hate this game, and some people love this game. I sort of fall somewhere in the middle. I mean, I totally see the merits that the game has. There's tons of single-player content. This is the most that we've ever had in a Smash game. There's just so much to do, but the gameplay just doesn't do it for me. But whether you love Super Smash Bros. Brawl or you hate Super Smash Bros. Brawl, there's just no denying that this is the third Super Smash Bros. Game.